Spring is truly an exciting time in the garden, and particularly if you live in a cool or temperate climate, it is really the whole start of a new season. But as well as being exciting, it can be a time to set up all of your success for the season ahead. And I want to give you some of my best tips so you have a really successful start to spring. While seedlings of most varieties will be available to buy in the shops, it doesn't mean that it's warm enough yet to put them in the ground. The air temperature might have warmed up, but of course it's the soil temperature that counts. Now, an old-fashioned method would be to put your bare bum on the soil. And if it's too cold for you, it's too cold for things like basil, corn, cucumbers or pumpkins. But of course, another way to do it is to use a little soil thermometer. Once the soil warms up, it is okay to get them in the ground. Around here, it's usually about mid-November. While you can't put them in the ground yet, you can certainly prepare for them. Now, this is going to be the pumpkin patch this year. And a couple of plants, well, they will produce enough pumpkins to store and eat right through the cooler months. And essentially I grow them in a pile of goodness. That's old leaves, straw, the chickens have been scratching and pooing in this for a couple of weeks, and compost. And I pile it all up now and let it rot down and warm up over the coming weeks. That's going to compost away, it'll warm right up, and in a couple of months it'll be ready to plant directly into. And some people might even continue to try and warm it up by putting some plastic, some black plastic or something on to absorb the heat. But I want to experiment with a little bit of stone, just some pavers. And I put them on the top of the mound, and they'll do a couple of things. They'll of course keep the moisture in, it's like a big chunky mulch. But further to that, I'm hoping that over time they'll actually absorb a bit of the sun's heat. At night, it'll radiate back out again. So when I plant those seeds in there, they're going to offer a little bit more warmth to the plants. It's a bit of an experiment, but I reckon these pumpkins, well, they'll be pumping. I'm going to come in and sniff it. Kind of look. Ooh. No, not sure. If you can get your hands or your plants onto some artificial heat, you can get a bit of a head start on growing things. Of course, I start my tomato seeds at the end of winter, and by now they're really quite mature plants. They've been potted into these paper pots to grow on before it's warm enough for them to go in the ground. And you can get heat in lots of different places. On a sunny windowsill is great, but this is a heat box where the heat is actually coming from the bottom. I've had a number of these. I've bought off-the-shelf propagating mats, but this was a great little idea that I saw another gardener do. It's a really cheap thing to buy. It's a Reptile tank heater. It's just a silicone-covered cord which is wound in through a bit of moist sand. The plants then sit on the top of this. Now, you could run a thermostat to really control that temperature. At the moment, I get about 20 degrees on that sand, which is the perfect warmth to raise a whole lot of seedlings and even cuttings. And then at night, it gets covered over and keeps it even warmer again. For a $50 investment and making this little timber box, it's proven to be a fantastic way to raise some plants. But your heat source doesn't need to be high tech. An old window will make a perfectly good cold frame. And you can even get a bit of heat from your compost. As your microorganisms fire up and start to break down organic material, they create heat, and you can utilise that to warm and grow some plants. You just need to give it a turn, get it really working. And if it's slowed right down, add a bit of nitrogen. Could be some grass clippings, or in this case, some of my chicken's poo. And then mix it in. Layer of straw. I'm going to water it. So that's running about, well, just over 40 degrees, and over the next couple of days it'll get even warmer. If it cools down, you can just turn it and that heat will go back up again. But really, it is a great way to offer a little bit of extra warmth to some of your cuttings to get them rocketing away in spring. One big tip I have for a successful spring and summer is to prepare to fail. I mean, most of your best laid work will thrive and you'll be harvesting those crops right through those warmer months. But hot, windy days, cold, frosty nights, snails and slugs are all a chance. And that means you might end up with some space in the garden that you didn't intend, some gaps to fill. So sowing a few extra seeds now, you might use them to fill your own garden or a space in the friends, and it's a really, really great backup plan. I use things like lettuce, spring onions. They can go in anywhere at any time, and they make really great use of that unexpected vacant space. And while your eyes are firmly fixed on growing some food this season, I have one last tip for you. Make sure you also plant some flowers. Not only for yourself, they are of course beautiful, but they're really important for the function of the garden. They attract all of those insects that predate on our pests, but also pollinate those crops we want to harvest. I have a rule: it is for every 10 food plants that goes in the ground, I'm meant to plant at least one flower. I've got a few to get in. I hope you have some great success this spring.